For me personally, it is very satisfying to see the great growth of the energy industry in Trinidad, especially the gas industry. As a young man some 30 years ago, I spent several years working on the early plans for something called SEG, or Southeast Galeota, which eventually became the Great Cassia Field, which started the gas industry for the island. Directly relevant for Trinidad, in what we see going forward, we expect natural gas to be the fastest growing fossil fuel, with a growth rate of around 2% a year out to 2030. And that's because gas is increasingly the fuel of choice for power generation and industrial use around the world. We're all aware of the shale revolution in the U.S., and we anticipate shale production will grow by about 7% a year and make up more than a third of the growth of natural gas supply up to 2030. That's a challenge for Trinidad and many other places producing gas. However, we expect the appetite for gas worldwide, and we also expect LNG production to grow by over 4% a year and to contribute an increasing amount of the trade. It will take energy from coal. It will replace coal in many places around the world. And this is, of course, good news for Trinidad. Indeed, Trinidad and Tobago is currently well placed within the global LNG markets. You know this. But looking out, Trinidad has the benefit of being a first mover into the market. Trinidad's industry has built a world-class LNG facility at a cost far lower than many new market entrants. When LNG trade globally fell slightly last year, Trinidad's LNG production bucked the trend and rose from 18.5 to 19 billion cubic meters last year. Not all projects did that around the world. And in the future, we expect LNG trade to pick up again. And despite all of the attention paid to the shale revolution, Trinidad's LNG remains globally competitive. Trinidad and Tobago is ranked 6th within the vibrant LNG market around the world, and it supplies energy to 20 different countries. So Trinidad and Tobago's importance in the world's energy markets is indisputable. It has not been blown away by the shale gale. And when the other factors behind Trinidad's resilience, when you include the quite interesting parallels between what's happening here and what we're seeing across the globe, here in Trinidad, we've conducted what we call an OBC, and we're an industry that always likes these 3 letters, and it means Ocean Bottom Cable Seismic Survey. This is the first time that this technology has been deployed in BP in a marine environment. I believe it's the first time in the world. It has changed the definition of looking at the subsea by a factor of 80. And we had a good discussion last night. The analogy would be just the increased numbers of pixels to view what's happening underneath the rocks. This was a significant investment for Trinidad business, a significant investment by PB of around $250 million, and the early results are encouraging. They've given us a new renewed sense about the potential of the Columbus Basin. Now, looking to what happens above the ground, we've seen good progress there too. We have been in conversations over the past few years with government and in each national budget. New incentives have been introduced to encourage further investment. We appreciate the support the industry has been shown, and we believe it has resulted in mutual benefits for the country and its citizens, as well as for energy companies, not only BP and other energy companies and their shareholders. And this is the balance that we should always strive for, as Roger talked about. It's so important to remain competitive. Our industry is a long-term industry. Decisions have to be made for 10 years out. And I will make the observation, in many countries we are working around the world, political systems are becoming very, very short-term, 15 to 18 months in many cases, and I'm so encouraged by the long-term outlook here in Trinidad. Everyone is talking about 10 years and what it will take to keep the gas industries flowing and the jobs flowing. The benefits of these fiscal changes have been evident in the recent successful bid rounds, particularly in the deep water, and we can now expect to see increased investments in exploration and development as a result of the changes announced last month in the Trinidad and Tobago budget for the 2014 fiscal year. We have a lot of optimism about the prospects for Trinidad and Tobago. There is very promising acreage here, both offshore and onshore. there are positive signs, too, about the country's future attractiveness as a location for investment. It will require, as Roger said, great partnership, great planning between government and the private sector to ensure that Trinidad and Tobago has a strong future as a competitive force in the global energy markets. We will continue to invest in our operations here with several aims in mind. One goal is to unlock new resources and maintain our production levels of around 400,000 barrels per day of oil equivalent, which is a big number. But even more fundamental objective is to maintain the integrity and the reliability of these assets. There's a lot of them offshore, which is why we've been investing heavily in maintenance and upgrades of our key offshore assets. You would expect after our events in the Gulf of Mexico to put this firmly in the spotlight of everything we do. Our most recent program has been the successful completion, which the Minister has worked very closely with BP starting earlier in the year, to bring on that successful completion of the turnaround of the Cassia B platform, which was achieved 25 days ahead of schedule on the 1st of October, and so important to get the gas flowing. The hub is a critical asset for BP Trinidad and Tobago, and the success of the turnaround was not only due to the thousands and thousands of hours our teams and our partners' teams spent on planning, but also due to the exceptional coordination of maintenance activities across the upstream, the midstream, and the downstream. And I wish to thank the Minister of Energy for his leadership on this. Over the past 3 years, we have deliberately undertaken a heightened maintenance program worldwide to ensure our assets are safe and reliable. And I know that this has caused some difficulties for both domestic and LNG customers. But I believe it has been essential work and the right thing to do, certainly for the longer term. Safety really does come first now for BP. In carrying out our maintenance activity, we've always striven to do the work as efficiently as possible and minimize the impact to the market. And the good news is that the majority now of our offshore turnaround activity is now behind us, and we are already seeing the results and benefits of improved reliability and efficiency. There will always be maintenance work to be done, but we expect to return to less intense levels in 2014.
I am pleased to welcome to this country one of the world's leading chief executives in the oil and gas industry, Bob Dudley, who is the Group Chief Executive Officer, the Group Chief Executive of BP. Bob, as I discovered yesterday, started his career in Amoco in 1979, and he informs me that he first came to this country in 1981 to negotiate, as he mentioned, with the late Trevor Bubsing for what is today the Cassia field. I'm also happy to report that he had the opportunity yesterday to meet with Prime Minister Kamala Persad-Bissessar before she departed for Panama, where she is attending the Americas Competitiveness Forum. Mr. Dudley's presence here is as a result of a meeting that he and I held on the margins of Sierra Week in Houston in March of this year. At that meeting, we discussed the Cassia hub turnaround and how we could mitigate the impact it had on the economy of this country. I am very pleased to say that BP has gone above and beyond the call to mitigate the impact of the Cassia turnaround on the national economy. This was accomplished by installing a bypass system to take natural gas around the Cassia hub. This intervention, ladies and gentlemen, has mitigated the impact of that turnaround by almost 50%, and it could now be more. In addition, as Bob just mentioned, the Cassia hub is back online some 25 days ahead of schedule. BP, ladies and gentlemen, in my layman's interpretation of what happened with Cassia, was literally performing bypass surgery on the Cassia hub. No small feat. I would also add that BG, our country's second largest natural gas producer, completed their work on the Dolphin platform within schedule, and that facility is currently online again. In the month of September 2013, we had major maintenance works on 2 major offshore facilities, 1 LNG train, Train 3, and 9 plants on the Point Lisas industrial estate were down. All this happened and Trinidad and Tobago didn't skip a beat. My primary instruction to the NGC, make sure the lights stay on. The lights stayed on. This is not, of course, that was not, of course, a product of guesswork. It involved integrated planning and coordination on an unprecedented scale. And the ministry was, I am happy to say, at the heart of that process. One of the positive outcomes of the last 3 years of maintenance is that we are better coordinated as an industry, and we are stronger for that. The next major investment for BP in this country is Juniper, which has reserves of 1.1 trillion cubic feet of natural gas and could produce at a plateau rate of 555 million scf per day. Juniper will account, ladies and gentlemen, for a large chunk of that $6 billion over the next 5 years that Andy Hopwood told us about in January of this year and Bob just reminded us about. The investments beyond Juniper will be informed by the processing of the recently acquired OBC 3D seismic. The good news is that BP is in investment mode again in Trinidad and Tobago. Our policy, ladies and gentlemen, is to keep the upstream competitive through an enabling fiscal regime, and our policy is to also increase national participation in the gas value chain. By that, I don't only mean government participation. I also mean local private sector participation. We are, as a government, very happy with the participation of Neil and Massey in the Neil Massey Mitsubishi Alliance for the methanol to dimethyl ether plant. Ladies and gentlemen, the upstream and the downstream are, of course, interlinked. It is a case, to me, of the cart and the horse. If we must get it right, we must know what is the cart and what is the horse. The upstream, in my opinion, is the horse that pulls the cart. In 2011, I set a priority of reinventing the upstream using the fiscal system. What are the facts? The facts of the matter, ladies and gentlemen, is that in the last 4 budgets presented by this government, there has been no increase in taxes on any aspect of the energy sector. Correct, Gregory? Right. No increases on any aspect of the energy sector. We have also managed to accomplish this with little or no material impact on government's revenue position. Our incentives only kick in if companies invest and if that investment realizes incremental hydrocarbon production.